fun list video. Previously, I did a top 17 Pixar films list, which, for the record, if you have not checked out, be sure to check that out. Knowing the fact that Cars 3 and Coco is out currently, I have yet to actually put those in the list. And I do have to majorly confess that I have not seen these two films, not yet at least, but I am going to see them in the near future. I will be getting Cars 3 on Blu-ray, and I most certainly am going to get Coco. I'm mostly going to see Coco in the theaters while it's still out. And the reason why we're talking about Pixar again is because Pixar has mostly gotten their fame from a lot of their famous short films that they did during the 80s, which was during a time when Pixar was not even in association with Walt Disney, but rather Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm was primarily the big owners of Pixar, and they were mostly responsible for all the early CGI animated short films that they made during the 80s. So the reason why we're talking about the short films is because if it wasn't for these short films, Pixar would not have they would not have the recognition they have right now alongside their famous, feature-length films. It's also safe to say that the feature-length films wouldn't exist without the short films. Now, you can actually watch these short films as part of a collection. Currently, the only collection I have right now is the Volume 1. I don't have the Volume 2 set yet, but I am going to be getting that. Volume 2 basically has a lot of the recent short films that came out, but Volume 1 has all of the earlier Pixar 13 animated short films that Pixar made from the 80s to the late 2000s. So today what I'm going to do is that I'm going to count down the top 13 greatest Pixar short films from this volume alone. Now, I'm not sure what would happen if I made this literally include with volume 2, because that would actually be a whole lot longer, but this list video is gonna go from least to best. So whatever's at the bottom of the list, I don't necessarily mean it in a way that's actually a bad short, because I love all 13 of these shorts. It's just that I think that some of them are just not as high as the others. So with that being said, let's get on to the list. Number 13, let's start off with Bogdan. This is a short film that was directed, written, narrated, and composed by Bud Luckey. If you don't know who Bud Luckey is, he was basically one of Pixar's key members. He was responsible for the character designing of the 3 Toy Story films, Monsters, Inc., Cars, The Incredibles, Wally. Basically, he was a character designer for many of the famous Pixar films during the late 90s and the early 2000s. And even John Lasseter credits him for being the true creator of the character Woody from the Toy Story films. He also did the voice of Rick Dicker from The Incredibles, and also he was the voice of Chuckles the Clown from Toy Story 3 and is set to return in Toy Story 4. He doesn't work with Pixar all that much nowadays. He's more like a part-time worker, if that makes sense, but he still does the voices to these characters. Anyway, that's not the point. Bogdan is actually the only short film that he actually made all by himself as far as directing and writing. It basically revolves around a dancing sheep who is all happy and is confident in his dancing, but he loses all of his confidence after he gets sheared, and then a jackalope, who's actually voiced by Bud Luckey, then actually teaches him about what bounding is. And basically what that term is whenever you get down, you rise back up. Basically, giving him back his confidence even if he is sheared. So this is more like a motivational short film, and I really do like it. I really like this short film, but it's not the most revolutionary, because by this time the short films for Pixar already made their stay. Number 12, One Man Band. This is a fun short film right here. It basically revolves around a character named Bass, who is basically an incredibly talented one-man band. He impresses this humble peasant little girl named Tippy, and as she prepares to reward him with a big gold coin for entertaining her. But then a newcomer by the name of Treble, yes, you'll notice that these characters are named after, instruments and whatnot. Basically, Treble plays a much more catchier song, stealing Tippy's attention, which then leads Bass and Treble to compete against each other for the big gold coin. However, they knock over the big coin, and then Tippy loses it. She becomes furious about it and tries to get a replacement coin from either Bass or Treble, but then she insists on taking one of Treble's violins so that way she can make her own money back from the coin that she lost. What she actually does, a passing pedestrian drops literally a big giant sack of big gold coins, to which she then teases Bass and Treble with 2 coins, and then she throws it up on a fountain, basically much to their dismay. This is actually a really fun short film, and it's actually one of the funniest. I can't necessarily say that it's actually Pixar's greatest, but it's actually a really fun short film, simply from the fact that, you have, these two characters competing with one another, not for the love of a character, but over just one big shiny coin, and, that's where the comedy comes in. Speaking of comedy, number 11, Mater and the Ghost Lights. This is a short film based on the Cars movie, and basically revolves around Mater basically pulling pranks on all of his friends. Once he does do that, he then teases Lightning McQueen about the ghost light, to which the sheriff basically shames Mater for, making fun of the urban legend. And then the sheriff tells everybody about the urban legend, and that the ghost light is basically like this paranormal orb of light that's blue that haunts Radiator Springs, and also explains the story about how a couple was affected by it and they were never seen again. This leaves Mater to cower in fear. And then it seems like he actually does encounter the ghost light because it starts chasing him. However, by the end of the short, it's revealed. Spoilers. I'm just gonna warn you right now. If you haven't seen this short, I'm just gonna warn you right now. Major spoiler. But at the end of the short, it is revealed that the ghost light is actually a fake, and that what was chasing him was actually a lantern that was on the back of his hook in his trunk. And that's when Mater found out it was a prank. But then the sheriff also tells him to be on the lookout for the screaming banshee. And I also want to bring up the post-credit scene, because the post-credit scene is one of the funniest I've ever seen. Basically, Mater actually sees the screaming banshee, and the screaming banshee is like literally right there. But then Mater then tells the screaming banshee to look out for the banshee, basically realizing that it's not him. Basically not realizing that it actually is the banshee. And then Mater drives away, and then then this banshee just looks all confused. It's so funny, and it was actually one of Mater's best moments, if you ask me, especially during his original run, not the Cars 2 run. We're not going to talk about that. Anyways, Mater and the Ghost Lights is one of the funniest short films from Pixar. It's a very fun one. Not the best, but definitely check it out. Even if I did give you that spoiler, I still highly suggest watching all of these short films for yourself to get your own opinion. Number 10, Lifted. This is actually the final short film that was actually released on this Blu-ray right here. So it's the last short film that you watch. It basically revolves around a little alien named Stu, who is basically like a trainee doing an examination test on alien abduction. His target is a farmer named Ernie, and he tries to abduct him, but he fails all the time. He's being watched by his examiner, Mr. B, who is basically this big giant gluttonous blob. And he's becoming so frustrated with Stu, and Stu is constantly messing around with all the switchers and everything inside the UFO, failing to get Ernie into the ship. Once he finally does, however, it seems like that he does, but then the reactor light then gets turned off, and he forgot to actually leave it on so that way he could get it in there. And then as he plummets to the ground, Mr. B becomes so frustrated and he catches Ernie and then places him back into his bed, which Stu is unable to hold back his tears after his major failure. Mr. B then begins to feel sympathetic with Stu, and then Stu controls the spaceship so that way they can travel back home. But then he crushes Ernie's house, only leaving a pillar of dirt, which is where Ernie is sleeping, and thus he is alive. And then after the UFO goes away, Ernie wakes up after his alarm clock goes off. He then screams, and then we hear a loud thud indicating that he fell in the crater. Also, the scream that we hear at the end of the short is actually the Wilhelm scream. This is a very interesting short film, to say the least. It's basically Pixar's take on the whole alien abduction or alien invader storyline or whatever. So, you know, it's quite interesting. So, I would say, you know, check it out if you haven't seen it. Number 9, Mike's New Car. This is basically a short film that follows up with Monsters, Inc. Obviously, it is basically a Monsters, Inc. short, and it's actually a really funny one, might I add. It basically revolves around Mike Wazowski, who is still voiced by Billy Crystal, along with Sully, who is still voiced by John Goodman. Of course, you can't have those two without them, because John Goodman and Billy Crystal are a great duo. But I think Billy Crystal here steals the show with his amazing and hilarious performance as Mike Wazowski. Basically, Mike gets this new 6-wheel car, and then after he invites Sully in there, Sully, literally anything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. Sully literally messes around with the chair, and then Mike becomes so frustrated. And then he tries to put on his seatbelt, and even though Sully got his on fine, Mike then struggles with it, and then he accidentally locks himself outside of his car, where he falls out after struggling with the seatbelt. And then Sully, who is confused as to what Mike is trying to tell him, you know, pushing a button so that way he can get back into his car, he literally opens up the hood, and then Mike literally gets his fingers crushed, and then he gets all jacked up from his engine compartment. Like, it's so hilarious. He then gets back into his car, where he proceeds to put on his seatbelt finally, but then the windshield wipers activate, and Sully tries to help out, but Mike refuses to help. To which then he pushes the button, and then the car goes all chaotic until he finally pulls the key out of the ignition. And then Sully breaks off the rear view window, and then Mike kicks him out. And then Mike speeds off with his car, and then he completely totals it. And then an airbag literally pushes Mike all the way across the air, and then Sully catches him. And then Mike mourns over his old car. It's one of the funniest short films ever. Like, just from beginning to end, just seeing everything go wrong just adds to the comedy in this short film. And I think the comedy in this short film was very top-notch. It's definitely one of Pixar's funniest short films. But, is it their funniest? We'll see about that later. Number 8, Jack Jack Attack. Much like Mike's New Car, this is basically a short film that actually is a short based on the film. The only difference is that the short film, unlike the other short films, maybe besides also Mike's New Car as well, but this short film actually parallels with The Incredibles. It takes place during the events of The Incredibles, where Kyrie, who is basically the babysitter of Jack Jack, is watching after him, obviously. And basically it shows what happened while Kyrie was taking care of, Jack Jack. And Jack Jack just goes completely nuts in this short film, and he steals the show in this short. Like, you cannot watch this short film without Jack Jack, because Jack Jack was absolutely amazing in this short film. Basically, he's constantly using his powers, and Kari is struggling to take care of him. But then, once she actually starts showing him a bunch of flashcards, he then begins to react to them. But then, once she actually shows like this campfire one, he immediately then turns himself into fire, and then Kari had to put him out, and then the next day she was shown to be stressed with taking care of Jack, and then Syndrome knocks on the door claiming that he is a replacement sitter, and that he is taking over Kari's duties as sitter. So basically what this short film does is that it explains all of the missing puzzle pieces for the Incredibles movie. Like, it explains what happened and why Kari was, overreacting to what was going on with Jack, and how Syndrome got into the Parr house. Like, it shows how he managed to go in there to kidnap Jack. Like, this short film is actually very important. So, if you have not seen this short film, definitely check it out. But, just one last thing. Rick Dicker, who is voiced by Bud Lucky, actually does appear in this short where he interviews Kari about all the events she experienced while babysitting him, and then proceeds to use a device in which he uses it to erase her memories to forget everything that she witnessed. It's a very, very, very good short film. Number 7, For the Birds. This one is arguably the funniest short film ever, arguably. If there was any way I could actually list this, it would probably be like maybe somewhere either between maybe 2 or 1. But the reason why I think it's the funniest is simply from the fact that you have like this, okay, so it revolves around a small group of birds basically relaxing on, a power line, but then they all start, arguing with each other. That is until they spot a large bird trying to make friends. However, the small birds reject him, and they try to get as far away from him as possible. But then the large bird then intervenes in everything, and if it gets in the middle of the line where the telephone wire is literally like that, like it's bending to where almost to the point where the birds could have fell off or destroyed the power line, literally. So then the birds come up with an idea to constantly peck the large bird's toes until he let go of the wire. However, when they peck his toe of the last time, his toenail literally scratches the telephone wire, and not only does the large bird fall on his head, but the small birds all get electrocuted and they lose their hair, but they're still alive. Like I said, one of the if not the funniest Pixar short film that they ever made. It's really amazing. Okay, it really is amazing. Just watch it. That's all I gotta say. Just watch it. Number 6, Knack. This was Pixar's final short film that they made during a time when they were still a hardware company, actually. And this short film is also known for being the Pixar's last short film until 1997, because during the time they were focused on creating their feature-length films like Toy Story and A Bug's Life. So this one is also this short film is very significant. But let's talk about it. It basically revolves around a snow globe man by the name of Nick, and according to the audio commentary in the Blu-ray, Nick, the snowman who appears in this short, is actually the cousin of Frosty the Snowman, believe it or not. I'm not making this up. But anyways, he basically wants to join a group of other travel souvenirs who basically have like this summer themed party. But here's the problem: he's stuck inside his globe and he tries numerous ways to get out of it. He even uses TNT to get himself out, but then he falls over, and then he uses the emergency exit to get out, but then he falls into a fishbowl where he spots a mermaid, and then once he tries to go after her, the globe traps him again, and Nick becomes frustrated. This is another funny short film. Maybe not necessarily as funny as For the Birds, but the reason why Knack is so high on the list is because this short film, it has very huge significance, and story-wise, it's actually, basic but still fun to watch. A lot of these short films do have a basic plot line, but that's what you should expect from a short film, because it's very difficult to make a short film with a very complex storyline. And like I said, this was 1989, so the animation here was absolutely brilliant for its time. But we'll go more in depth into the animation later on in this list. On to the next one. Number 5, Jerry's Game. Remember how I said that Knack was Pixar's final short film before 1997? Well, that's where Jerry's Game comes in. Jerry's Game is basically Pixar's first short film that they made since 1989, which was Knack. This short film actually appears before A Bug's Life, and this was actually my very first Pixar short film that I ever saw at the young age of 4. This was basically a short film that I have the most fond memories of, and I'm glad I actually got to watch it again, because I actually just literally got done watching all of these short films consecutively. Anyways, the short film basically revolves around Jerry, who is basically an elderly man who literally plays chess with himself. But the difference, though, is that he plays 2 different versions of himself. You have like a more arrogant version, and you also have a more older and struggling version of himself. Let's just call it black and white. Let's just say Black Jerry is the one without the glasses, and White Jerry does have the glasses. Basically, in the short film, Black Jerry constantly gets the upper hand, and White Jerry constantly becomes, frustrated with the game. So then he comes up with an idea to fake a heart attack. And then Black Jerry becomes distracted, and once he is, White Jerry then literally cheats and turns the board around, and then he proceeds to checkmate his opponent, to which Black Jerry then just, forfeits the game, and then he literally gives a pair of fake dentures as the prize for winning the game, and then the regular White Jerry then he puts the dentures in his mouth, and then he smiles in victory. This is an amazing short film, and the animation actually looks a lot more realistic than the previous short films. But again, it's not because of the graphics, it's just the overall presentation. And the reason why this short film is so high on my list is because, like I said, it was the first short film that I ever watched, and on top of all that, Jerry's Game actually won an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film in 1998, but we'll go more in depth onto the awards later on. Number 4, Red's Dream. Red's Dream was basically a short film that came out in 1987 that revolves around a unicycle named Red, who's basically at a store waiting to be purchased. So then we have a dream sequence where he is, having fun with a circus clown named Lumpy, and they're both basically juggling balls, and they seem to be both really good at it. Later on, they both separate themselves. And even though Lumpy is not on the unicycle, he's still doing it, but that is until he comes to the realization that he's not on it, and then he falls to the ground. But then he actually seems to disappear from the dream after that. Then Red, the unicycle, actually starts juggling all the balls after catching the 2 of them, and he juggles them all by himself, and then he gets an uproarious cheer from the audience, only to fade back to reality with the cheers on the sound of the rain, and then only to realize it was only a dream, to which Red then becomes depressed and bleak, and then he goes back to sleep in the corner. Even though this short film is only 4 minutes, and considering the fact that this is an inanimate object we're talking about, the fact that I actually feel sorry for him says a lot. I don't know how it worked, but it did work. And I do also need to throw out for the record that this was John Lasseter's second short film that he's ever made. John Lasseter actually did 5 short films. He actually did 5 of them, and we already counted down a few of them. We already put in Mater and the Ghostlight. He also did Knack, and he also did a few others that have yet to appear on this list, and I will talk about them as we go along. But again, like I was saying, the fact that I feel sorry for an inanimate object proves that the character development is actually better than a previous short film, which we will talk about in a bit. Number 3, The Adventures of Andre and Wally B. This is Pixar's very first short film that they've ever made, dating back to 1984. And this was during a time when they were credited as Lucasfilm, because, you know, at the time, Lucasfilm owned Pixar before Walt Disney bought them out during the bought them during the 2000s, and when, you know, Disney started distributing all of the films. Anyways, this short basically revolves around basically a sleeping child named Andre, and then he gets awakened when he actually sees a bee by the name of Wally B literally fly towards him. He then becomes afraid of the bee, and then he distracts Wally so that way he runs away. He then runs away, and then Wally B literally chases after him, and then he proceeds to sting him. And then after he stings him, you can see that his stinger is literally a bit crushed. And then Andre literally throws a hat at him for the last laugh. It's so funny. So it's the shortest Pixar short in the collection. But the reason why it's so high on the list is because this short film was very groundbreaking for the time. In 1984, no one ever imagined seeing a movie, let alone a short film, in CGI, and this is what caused the film industry to actually start using CGI. It's safe to say that if this short film never existed, CGI would not be as common with movies as they are today. Because let's be real, a lot of CGI films nowadays owe themselves to this. Number 2, Luso Jr. Words cannot be described on how amazing this short film is. This is John Lasseter's very first short film that he's made, with the second one obviously being Red's Dream. But again, I will go more in depth as we go along. Basically, this short film revolves around a desk lamp by the name of Luso Sr., who constantly hits back a ball that keeps coming back to him. And then we see his son, who is a much smaller desk lamp named Luso Jr. If you don't know who Luso Jr. is, you guys probably know him for appearing on the famous Pixar logo. This short film actually introduced the company's mascot. So this short film, we can owe this short film for actually allowing Luso Jr. to appear on the Pixar logo. It's absolutely amazing. But anyways, Luso Jr. then continues to play with the ball, and he even bounces himself on it, and then he deflates the ball, to which Luso Sr. then shames. He begins to admonish his own son, and then Luso Jr. finds a bigger beach ball and begins to play with it. The funniest part is when Luso Sr. looks at the audience, specifically at the camera, and then he starts head shaming. This short film is actually Pixar's second. It's actually their second short film, but the first ever made by John Lasseter, whereas The Adventures of Andre and Wally B was actually made by Alvy Ray Smith. So that's why this one is actually John Lasseter's very first short film, and that's why he actually doesn't have the director or writer role in The Adventures of Andre and Wally B. Anyways, Luso Jr. is a masterpiece of a short film, one of the most inspirational short films ever. But the shocking part is that it's only number 2. So what's the best? Let's move on to number 1. Number 1, I give you Tin Toy. Hands down, not only Pixar's greatest short film of all time, but also John Lasseter's greatest short film. Out of all the 5 short films that John Lasseter has done, such as, Luso Jr., Red's Dream, Knack, and Mater and the Ghost Light. I think Tin Toy is his greatest because let's just talk about it. Basically, it revolves around a little tin toy by the name of Tinny, who is basically a one-man band toy. He basically spots like this giant baby named Billy, and at first he grows interest to the baby, but then he realizes how dangerous Billy is, and so Tinny tries to run away from him, and once he does, he's under a couch where all the other toys are just as scared of Billy as he is. Then when Billy still tries to find Tinny and the other toys, he falls on the hardwood floor and begins to cry. And then Tinny begins to feel a little sorry for himself, and then he goes out from under the couch in an attempt to cheer up Billy. Once he finally does cheer up Billy, Billy doesn't even play with him. He rather plays with the box that Tinny came in, and Tinny becomes furious at this. And Tinny tries his best shot to, get Billy to, pay attention to him, but Billy ignores him. That's all you really need to know. And that's what it's about. It is one of the greatest short films, if not the greatest animated short film of all time. A lot of animated short films owe themselves to Tin Toy. And I also need to go on record by saying that Luso Jr. was actually the very first, while Luso Jr. was the very first animated short film to be nominated for an Academy Award, Tin Toy, on the other hand, was the very first CGI film to win an Academy Award for Best Short Animated Film. And this was in 1988. So you guys can probably understand how groundbreaking it was for a CGI film to win an Academy Award. The animation was absolutely brilliant, even if Billy's diapers was a little bit larger than it's supposed to be. But the animation still holds up. If you ask me, even The Adventures of Andre and Wally B still holds up, because that was an amazing short film. But Tin Toy is the greatest. Pixar's greatest short film and John Lasseter's greatest short film. Period. John Lasseter is easily a very talented man. He has a great style when it comes to animating, especially with his work with the Toy Story films. And these 5 short films just show a lot of the creativity that Mr. Lasseter actually has. Even though I did hear that he was involved in some kind of recent scandal, I still have respect for him, even because I know for a fact that he actually is trying to better himself into a man as opposed to someone else. Harvey Weinstein. But anyways, we're not here to talk about that. The point is, these short films are some of the most inspirational short films you'll ever see in your life. These short films actually inspire me to continue my filmmaking pursuit, and it also inspires me to make more short films. These short films also inspired me to make Bad Sonic and make it connect with the feature-length movies, and this also inspires me in the world of animating. While animation is not necessarily a passion of mine, it's actually a really good hobby that could tie in potentially with my video production major. So, if you have not seen the Pixar Short Films collection, there are 2 volumes. The other 2 volumes, the other volume, Volume 2 specifically, has the recent short films that came out. While this one, on the other hand, has, the older ones dating back from the 80s and the late 2000s. So if you have not seen them, I highly suggest buying them on Blu-ray. You will not regret it.